Welcome, the warmest welcome to all of you for coming from near and far, our students, our faculty, friends of the college. It's a great honor to welcome you here today to this roundtable symposium on the history and conditions and possibilities for Renaissance. This is not just the biggest event in the history of Ralston College, but also its most intellectually ambitious, since we are posing the fundamental question about what education and culture need to be. It's a very interesting time here in the United States of America and around the Western world. Ralston is part of, in some sense, at the forefront of, a movement of renewal. Renewal of the conditions of human flourishing, renewal to the very possibilities of the human spirit. All of us in this room are here because we share a deep-seated conviction not only that these questions matter, are fundamental, but that we need to show the world better answers. We are here because we have the conviction that we need to take courageous and clear-eyed action now. There's the old proverb that the best time to plant a tree is either 50 years ago or 100 years ago or right now. We need to get planting. We have a staggering amount of firepower in this room today. Both those speaking and those listening, we're going to have chance for questions, so hold on to your hats. By way of large, you might say, setting of the framework, I'd like to make 3 points by way of introduction, 3 conditions as I see it for human flourishing. 3 conditions, you might say, that are the patterns for the renewal of human culture. First, we have to get the big ideas right, whether we call that the science of first principles or theology or just the basic rules of reality. We see how badly things go when we get those guiding fundamentals wrong. The currently widespread neo-Marxist worldview, in which there is no truth but only power, produces a world of cynicism towards truth and beauty and freedom and human dignity, ugliness in architecture, ideology in education, disastrous elites, rancorous civic life, broken families, in short, alienation and a crisis of meaning. And yet, these ideas are profoundly wrong. They are radically at odds with the very nature of what we know about reality, the nature of the natural world, the nature of ourselves. Let's call it the nature of the first principles themselves. Now is not the time, perhaps, for a long discourse on these matters. But as a friend of mine says, a friend who is here today, we must be grounded in metaphysical realism about the irreducible fact of freedom in human nature, in thought, in beauty, in conscience and association and exchange, and in the search for truth. Also, about the inevitable reality of truth itself, the structures and patterns of the real, whose sovereignty does not in any way depend on our acknowledgement of them. The fire will burn and the stone be hard, and human beings by nature free, quite apart from what we want or think. And finally, an understanding that at the bedrock nature of things is not zero sum, that the bedrock nature of things is not zero sum, but its opposite. It's why the ancient philosophers recognized the superabundance of the first principle as infinitely good. It's why the tradition identifies God as love, that there is a free, self-giving, and ultimate reciprocity at the very heart of reality itself. This is what underlies creativity and innovation, the pursuit and discovery of knowledge, the development of culture and tradition through time, and above all, the coherence and transformative character of our relationships with one another. So first, we have to get the fundamental ideas right. This is just a sketch of a few fundamental facts of the real. not because it changes reality in any way that we understand these things, but because it allows us to act and interact and to structure our institutions in relation to what is real. Second, we must keep in mind that the non-instrumental is what is most generative. The things that exist and are of value in themselves. That's where the meaning is. We know this in our relationships and in our pursuit of things that matter in themselves, that are by definition not subordinate to us and our narrow self-interest, but that exist outside of us, whether it's those that we love, the high pursuits in life. It's where the meaning is, in the non-instrumental. But paradoxically, it's also where productivity is. It's where productivity originates, in that which is not first instrumental. The application of the insight is always subsequent to the insight. You need Newton and or Leibniz, they both independently discovered calculus, but you need Newton or Leibniz to have discovered calculus before it could yield the vast power of modern technology. You need to have understood what the golden mean is before it can become a pattern in the building of our buildings. It was in the monasteries, these places that were radically non-instrumental, that Europe was born, this great spiritual, creative, political force of modern Europe. We urgently need to invest in the contemplative, in the non-instrumental, as what is both most valuable in itself and, paradoxically, most productive. And finally, third, we need to have a clear view of what we are, of what human nature is. Some of you have heard me say before that every November here in Savannah, we're living in this magnificent city with these great live oak trees. Every November, they shed their acorns. And every single one of those acorns is potentially a mighty oak tree. And yet, most of them do not become oaks. They're trod underfoot, they become food for squirrels. Every one is potentially a mighty oak. And yet, that realization of its potential is not inevitable. It depends on a good lie in the ground and good soil and water and sunlight over a long period of time. Those are the conditions that allow the inner potential, that's a real thing of that acorn, to be actualized. And the question is, what are the conditions for the realization of human potential? The Latin word, we get the word culture from the Latin word colocholera. It means to cultivate. Agriculture is the cultivation of the land. What is the soil? You might say, if culture is just the soil for human beings, what is the soil in which human nature can be realized? Human beings are self-aware, complex, wonderful beings. What kind of education is adequate to the free nature, the free self-conscious nature of a human being? That's a big question. What kind of architecture is adequate and helps us realize our inner nature? And why? Our culture needs to be a home fit for human beings who are innately free, who are capable of knowledge and love. Everything follows from that. You can't build anything good without it being for that. That underlies all human relationships, community, art, and architecture. It underlies the regeneration of all aspects of cultural life. It depends on our knowing what it is that what a human being is. So, these are my three broad settings of the stage. We need to get the big ideas right, from which everything we build is downstream. The priority of the non-instrumental, high-order goods for their own sake. And finally, clarity about human nature, for which all of culture exists in the first place. As I say, hold on to your hats. We'll have a splendid array of speakers and interventions from various angles and domains and disciplines, and about 7 times that right here in the room. So this is the kind of room in which things are going to happen.